There's a lot on the line here for these teams, and it is going to be Willamette University taking on Oregon State University. The Paladin band for Willamette, the Warlock for Oregon State. It's Druid Priest Warlock against Mage Priest Paladin. So, a good amount of variety for our final series of the day. Let's take a look at the roster from Willamette. N-Dog, Attack You, J-Plays, and Big Wen with studio art, computer science, and undeclared. I like that. Take your time, figure out what you want. Hello, Twitch chat.
That's
how
how
are
you
you
get
today?
Twitch chat's favor for sure, is just acknowledge them. They're killing it.
They just want to be noticed.
Oh, also just getting in there with a emote slash
Twitch
meme.
chat they need a little attention. They're like a cat every once in a while. They come to you and they ask for some pets and then they leave and they're happy. Oregon State, Menke, Anton 128, and Agro, Biohealth Sciences, Bioengineering, and Biohealth Sciences. Okay, these three guys have a lot in common. Maybe a little bit less chat interaction here, but that just means they're all business, you know?
Yeah.
They came into this knowing this is their last chance to make it to the regional playoffs. They're not messing around.
And I don't blame them. Like, a lot of these times, you really do have to focus and just make sure you're playing your best, because it's just the pressure.
I mean, we saw Cal in our last series, and Cal is a very good team with competitive players, not just in the collegiate realm, but in the competitive Hearthstone realm for HCT and playoffs and things like that. And they made some silly mistakes.
Yeah, for sure.
They did stuff that you would never expect.
The very first game, they made themselves dead to Pyroblast, which they could have played around, and some other small missteps that could have costed them. But it's always good to see that play deciding the outcomes of the games, and
Yeah.
Jamestown did play well, so it's cool to see them.
Yeah, it is always nice to see the team that plays better actually come out with the win there. Even though they brought Murloc Paladin, thought Divine Favor was in it, and it wasn't.
That happens.
Double check your lists, guys. Even if you're playing a lot of Hearthstone, you know, just Santa Claus those. Make the list, check it twice. You're always going to be happy you did. But going into this last one, clean slate.
I'm glad that we've seen a large variety of lineups today.
Yeah, Tespa has a lot of variety. A lot of different priest decks. We see that fourth deck slot in particular can really, really vary between teams. It's just, you know, it's personal preference a lot of the time, and whether or not there's like a Warlock or Paladin target in some of the lineups certainly matters, certainly changes what that fourth deck will be. Do you see that much variety in HCT events usually?
I feel like there's two popular lineups right now, one that bans Paladin and then one that bans Warlock. But, you know, people are still innovating. You know, we didn't see any Dead Man's Hand Warrior until Odemian brought it out and won Toronto with it. So there's definitely a lot of room to bring stuff that people haven't seen before.
That's another thing. Tespa tends to really follow pretty quickly after HCT Tour Stop metas. As soon as Dead Man's Hand Warrior came out and Odemian won Toronto, it flooded into the Tespa meta. That's when we really started seeing more of it. So thank you, Odemian. Dead Man's Hand Warrior is the bestest deck to cast ever because the games are super short.
And then you play against it on ladder and watch your opponent game armor forever.
Or so it feels. Now, I actually really enjoy the deck. It's really cool from just a goal standpoint. There's not a lot like it in the game of Hearthstone, but these two decks are a little bit more straightforward. It's going to be Willamette on the Jade Druid deck. The only curious thing about this list is they do have one copy of Innervate and one copy of Mark of the Lotus, although I personally enjoy both of those decks. I think Mark of the Lotus is a very strong card and certainly can find some purchase in Jade Druid. Talk Puzz? I don't think that's what they're going for.
Is someone injured?
Next time they're going to have to take a look in a
does
mirror.
not work very well backwards.
Not like Nostum and
Or Bob.
Matson and Bob. What? Oregon State's playing Spiteful Druid. And Spiteful Druid actually is a deck that is very strong, or Spiteful Priest, excuse me, is a deck that's very strong against Jade Druid if it just hits that power curve. If you get that Spiteful on 6, Druid without Naturalize has a very difficult time clearing up a single big minion very early on.
Yeah, I'd actually say this is one of the strongest matchups for the Spiteful Priest. Just the minion pressure is not something that Druid deals with well, especially because, you know, you don't go very wide on the board. You just play a couple minions that are very strong, so then you're never, you know, too susceptible to spreading plague.
Willamette has a lot of early interaction, can clear off quite a bit, but they don't have that ramp. They don't have Wild Growth. They don't have Jade Blossom, Nourish.
Well, they did play one Wild Growth this game, so they got a little bit of a ramp going. They did decide to coin it out.
But they're going to need to find their own development at some point. Meanwhile, Oregon State just going to keep on trucking.
And finding another Shadow Ascendant. Pretty good here. Going to continue to buff up that Cleric, which now it's going to be out of range of that swipe.
Willamette may honestly have to use branching paths for draw, just to find some of their own threats, because this is going to be a tough board to clear off without any bodies of their own.
Yeah. You know, this is a little bit of a weird turn, because you do want to deal with that Shadow Ascent before it keeps buffing up. But at the same time, you really want to save that Spellstone, because it can potentially get upgraded next turn with the branching paths.
Yeah.
So maybe you just swipe the 2/2 here. It seems inefficient, but I don't know. All the plays are really awkward this turn.
If Oregon State has a 4-drop they want to play, they won't also want to heal the Cleric. And because both Ascendants have been played, now Willamette's looking at Netherspite Historian plus a lesser heal being a pretty big punish. But they can always branching paths for armor twice, have a fully upgraded Spellstone to take out the Cleric that way. I suppose they could also do it this way. Go for swipe and an upgraded Spellstone next turn. Yeah, looks like that's what they're going to do. But that doesn't take into account the Ascendant with an additional buff.
Yeah. I wonder if you ever not play this minion to guarantee that the Cleric gets the buff.
I mean, even if Willamette clears up this Cleric, you're still left with a Twilight Drake on board then. I think Oregon State's happy to just have any form of pressure here.
Yeah.
And there's still a 50% chance that this hits the Cleric.
When you play Spiteful Priest, you're almost always just playing your minions on curve.
Just feels good sometimes. That's Spiteful on 6. Free from Amber on 8. Well, Willamette. There's nothing else to do here, but that buff will hit on that Cleric. And Willamette, no other way to gain armor. In a bit of a tough spot.
Yeah, I mean, you could use the swipe here to clear out the Twilight Drake, but then you're stuck in a position where it doesn't feel great to use that Spellstone just on the 2/1. Shadow Ascendant, you can't clear the Cleric. It's tough. I don't mind playing the Iron Golem and maybe just taking out the Twilight Drake with the Spellstone, because it is 4 damage right now, right?
Yeah. And then, assuming the Cleric runs over the Golem and heals, it goes to 5. You can swipe Hero Power. Either way, you're not killing this board in one turn. So what's the best way Willamette can dismantle this in 2?
Definitely think this was their best line. But, man. You know, things always look a little bit close in this matchup, and then the Spiteful Summoner comes down. And that could just really blow you out. So I'd imagine they're going to start this turn with going for that draw on the Cleric. See what card you get off the top before you make any of the other decisions.
Find a Talon Priest, maybe. Get to keep that Ascendant around.
Yeah, that would definitely be the best draw. But Glimmer, not the worst. Fills out the curve.
Oregon State doesn't have to attack here. This Ironwood Golem can't attack unless Willamette has 3 armor.
That is right. Could always just wait to trade it in next turn while getting the buff. Gets punished by swipe a little bit because he could actually punch it this turn now that he has 6 mana. But it does get the buff.
Lists are open. Glimmer Roots should always be.
Yeah, if you want the
100%.
card, you could pick it out. There's definitely situations where you don't always want the card, but Jade Idol, Now you could go infinite too. Not realistically, but, you know.
Oregon State can race on Jades. Or they could just Spiteful on 6 and win the game. Swipe Hero Power kills Northshire Cleric. It doesn't clear up the Glimmer Root or the Shadow Ascendant. Jade Behemoth, you know, maybe just force Oregon State to trade again. They already showed that they were unwilling to get rid of this Shadow Ascendant.
Yeah. And coming up next turn, it's actually going to be a 50-50 for the 8 mana or 10 cost minion. Sometimes people just run 1 copy for each for Remember just because the 10 drops are so much better than the 8 drops. But they opted to go with 2 here, and now they're going to have that big 50-50. But there is actually some 8 drops that are better than 10 drops.
Yeah,
Tyrion's a pretty good one.
Cthulhu and N'Zoth and Yogg-Saron are the worst 10 drops that you can get, just
But
based solely on stat totals.
there is a couple 12/12s, and those are good.
I do like that Willamette went with Jade Behemoth, knowing that Oregon State would want to play Spiteful on 6. And the trades aren't super clean. Oh, that's good.
And that even pulls out some dragons. It's got some useful text on it.
Okay.
Not bad. We were talking about that 12/12s are pretty good, and I think this one's going to prove to be this game. And I don't believe that they have a Naturalize in the Druid deck like we saw
No.
earlier. No, they don't. So they don't really have a way to kill this at all. They have, you know, Spreading Plague to buy some time, but that doesn't kill a 12/12. It just delays the inevitable.
It's going to take Willamette. I don't even know if they can gather enough damage to kill this Deathwing.
Yeah, you could swipe it eventually, but how do you deal that beginning 4?
Ogun Summons doesn't... Oh, Ogun Summons pulls Fandral.
Yeah.
So maybe this is just Spreading Plague.
Yeah, trade in the 1/1 into the Cleric and make some 1/5s, I'd imagine. Or maybe the swipe is pretty good too. You know, you leave yourself with just the 12/12, but at the same time, I feel like you want to get value out of the Spreading Plague first and then swipe. Because if you isolate the 12/12, then your Plague is sort of dead.
Yeah, that's true. Oregon State doesn't have to go wide. They can just kill you with Deathwing Dragonlord over 3 turns. 2 turns if they play anything else this next turn. So swipe removes a lot of initial aggression on the board. It was a good swipe, but nothing will be good enough.
Oh man, and they could even give it more HP.
Hashtag bring back mulch. Can you imagine mulch in this meta? Holy crap.
Would it be good?
I think it'd be great.
It'd be alright. Naturalize is pretty similar to some extent. Obviously, the card being drawn is a little bit of a drawback, but
Mulch is like at least 37% more fun.
yeah, until it gives you another Deathwing Dragonlord.
Yeah. A shadow. I mean, sure. What's Willamette gonna play that you actually want a Twilight Acolyte? And this way, Oregon State has... they have 17 on board. Free from Amber does have some lethal outs. I believe Charged Devilsaur is the
I think that's the only one,
only
yeah.
one.
But 7 damage is a good amount.
Can confirm. It's always nice hitting face with those bad boys.
A lot of ways the Jade Druid tries to come back in this matchup is using Spreading Plague to buy time while making Jades at the same time to then put stats on the board to trade into the minions, but only having the Spreading Plague and no Jades just means he's just not going to have the stats, and the Druid removal spells aren't good enough to kill this Deathwing.
No.
So even if you are buying time, you're not buying time to do anything.
Druid removal spells are fine for Paladin. They're fine for a bunch of dudes. They are not good for big stuff. Yasharaj, anybody?
They're thinking.
Gotta make it look like it's a tough choice. Do we go with May or Noggenfogger? Ah, do we go with Nozdormu? No. Yasharaj.
But, you know, this matchup's pretty much just going as expected. It's probably, maybe even the best matchup for that Spiteful Priest has. So, it's, you know, very telling that their game plan beats up Druid pretty well.
Yeah.
Just look at all these stats on the board.
Yeah, I mean, Spiteful Priest has great game against Druid, is decent against Warlock. Oftentimes, the Spiteful Priest just becomes the Warlock with Draconid Operative, with Mind Control, can steal Gul'dan and N'Zoth, a bunch of Void Lords, and they usually have more cards left when the Warlock is fatiguing. But, I mean, if you can just get there with a Deathwing in this matchup, there's your win.
Time waits for no one.
Yeah, these 1/5 taunts are going to look really wimpy compared to these big boys coming out from the Priest.
Only one going to be left over.
I'm very ready to watch the same 2 turns happen back to back.
Uh-huh.
Spreading Plague attacks some minions, Spreading Plague attacks some minions, and then eventually
Priest will win.
they're going to punch through at least one of those big guys for lethal damage.
It's going to take a hot second. And Spreading Plague is going to be 6 mana, heal like 30.
Yeah, there's
Twice.
nothing, you know, awful for Yasarj to pull either. There, you know, there's no Doomsayer in the deck that's going to, you know, really.
Yeah. There's no way Oregon State is going to lose the game off of this Yasharaj. Willamette will, though.
The reason to stick in the game is to hope they draw Spiteful Summoner, they get the 8-drop, and then they get the Mage Legendary.
Ooh, Anomalous.
Anomalous, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the out you're looking for, is you need them to play that second Spiteful Summoner. But
Oh, okay. Well,
now
Ah.
now it's brutal.
never lucky. Won't even get into how Willamette would have needed a way to kill Anomalous.
It's always funny to hear players talk about why they didn't do some things. Like I've seen players not play Spiteful Summoner like in a situation like that because they're thinking like, oh, the only way I lose is Anomalous. So sometimes when good players are ahead, they are trying to think of every possible situation that a wacky thing that can happen.
I
and
am
just
100%
play
to
around
win.
those.
How can I possibly lose? And when you're massively ahead, that's your job.
Exactly. And Spreading Plague gonna come out again.
Time waits for no one.
No amount of ultimate infestations can save Willamette here. Especially since that amount right now is 0. But like 100 Spreading Plagues might do the job.
Think about this, that this Spreading Plague is better than Reno Jackson here.
Ew.
Go back up to 30? Ah, I'd rather put all these 1/5s on the board.
It's better than Ice Block. Are we rotating this card?
But at the same time, it's not bringing them back into the game in this situation.
Oh, hell no. Deathwing might. And Yogg-Saron perhaps could. But that is pretty much it.
Things used to be different. There used to be clear ways to come back no matter what. It used to be that every deck had Yogg, and that no matter what the situation was, if I live till that turn 10, I have a dream.
And sometimes that dream became a reality. There was always a reason to play it out. But now you can't even play it out and say that the reason is information, because
It is open deck list.
decks are open.
And I think this might be the final turn for the Jade Druid. I'm not quite sure if Priest is going to have enough to push through lethal next turn, but it's going to be close to it depending on whatever the Jade Druid does.
Oregon State University. Their only comments that they made on their bios were 10K Plux, engineering is hard, and I changed my major 4 times.
Time waits for
That's
no one.
fun.
I feel that. I didn't do that, but
How are you supposed to figure out what you want to do?
I'm an indecisive person. If somebody's like, where do you want to go to eat? No.
I'm pretty sure that's just everybody ever.
There's gotta be somebody who's like, I know exactly the place.
Yeah, that's true.
We are going to Chili's. 2 for 20s, Nostum. You in?
No.
I don't blame you. Alright.
Woo!
Game's over. Priest has won.
They did what they're supposed to do. They made big minions. Druid looked at them. They made up some taunts, but at the end of the day, Priest got there.
Oregon State built their brick house. Willamette blew a mighty wind. But the engineering from the engineering majors was too good.
That's what you have to expect.
It is.
It's just the first game of the series. Definitely a lot of Hearthstone to be played. Can't get too down on yourself.
No. That's one that's really, really difficult for the
Yeah.
Druid to win. You need the Priest to not have the curve. You need them to not have the Spiteful Summoners. And, you know, if they miss, then it is very possible for the Druid to win. But other than that, they can't ramp mana and Jades by turn 6 to compete with the Deathwing Dragonlord. It's just not possible. So now Willamette, with their Paladin band away, will still have to get that Druid win alongside the Priest and the Warlock. Oregon State now with just the Mage and the Paladin. So sitting up at a 1-0 lead. Nothing impossible to come back from. It's when you get to that 2-0 point that suddenly things start getting a little bit shaky.
There is always hope.
There's hope. hope. Except in that game. Wasn't much hope.
Yeah, without something like a naturalize, just you know once that 12-12 comes down that eventually that thing will kill me.
No
And it did.
yogs, no dreams. Alright, so the Warlock banned away, the Paladin banned away. We're not going to be seeing the really aggressive Paladin from Willamette. It was not dudes or Murlocs, it was just face Paladin. And it was kind of neat, so I'm a little bit sad that we're not going to see that, but we still will see their Warlock deck at some point, which is a Cube Warlock with a bunch of cards in it that shouldn't be in Cube Warlock. And honestly, I'm kind of selfishly hoping that they win so I can ask them, why did they put Treachery in their Warlock with no Howlfiend and no Doomsayer? Because I don't
The
I don't
reasoning
know.
really might be so their opponent doesn't ban it. Like, how many bad cards can you put into Cube Lock to
And
bait your
make it
opponent to
bad.
not ban it?
Cube Block is still
Because
Cube
it's still
Block.
probably pretty good, even with the Treachery in there.
It's got Treachery, Fellfire Potion, Siphon Soul, Twisting Nether, Cabal Trafficker, which Seiko played with and did really well with, so that's not necessarily a tell. Gnome Feratu, Stonehill Defender, Mortal Coil, and a Shadow Flame.
The only synergy that we could even come up with for the Treachery was Cabal to then get the Howlfiend.
Yeah, or Unlicensed Apothecary.
Yeah.
That could be pretty good. But other than that,
besides that, you know, a little bit
weird
of a dead
deck.
card.
But they're going to bring this Jade Druid back out first in Oregon State on the Secret Mage. If they find that Alineth, this is not a bad matchup for the Mage, but Druid just has so much armor game that it can really feel like an uphill battle sometimes, even with all the burn.
Yeah, a lot of times, the Mage has to kill them pretty fast. One of the most important cards in this matchup for the Jade Druid is just Malfurion. Be able to armor up every turn. And see that Mage is going to have at least a reasonable hand just because they do have that Alunith. I'm getting in there with another emote for the chat. Definitely trying to play it up. Excited to be on broadcast. And they look like they're just having fun.
They do. They really do. At what point, though, are they trying a little too hard? You know, just play it cool, Willamette. Play it cool.
I mean, as long as they're having fun, who cares? They're laughing, playing Hearthstone,
It's a game.
killing it.
Maybe having a little bit less fun when your opponent gets that Mana Worm on turn 1, but you got a Wrath. It's all good.
It's also relevant that Mage is on the coin because you have that coin which counts as a spell for the Mana Worm, and also that means your opponent does not have it to proc something like Counterspell.
That's very important. Whoever has the coin tends to sway the matchup against the Secret Mage quite significantly. If, for instance, Warlock has the coin and can proc Counterspell with the
Yeah.
coin instead of with one of their healing spells,
It's a
which
big
is
deal.
usually the other, yeah, makes a big difference. So the Mage win rate goes up quite a bit.
But we do see that they had the Wrath, not the most common card in the Jade Druid, but working out very well for them here. Probably the single best target for a Wrath to hit.
It's still so weird to hear not the most common card in Druid.
I thought Wrath would be played forever, but just the concept that there's too many good cards. Sometimes you have to cut Wrath.
Man, it's been one of those evergreens for so long. Oregon State coining out that Arcane Intellect instead of saving coin for Alineth because their mindset is, you know, we need to make it to turn 5. And right now our hand is not good enough to do that. Gotta find some early minion pressure to negate some of the armor that the Druid can gain, so expend the coin now on the AI and hopefully find something like a Kirin Mage. But instead they just find Heavy Bird.
Yeah, this is one of the weaker
Oy.
Jade Druid draws that we've actually seen today. No ramp, no proactive plays. Definitely not where you want to be at. And now you're in a situation where you're a little bit scared of counterspell.
Oregon State has so much damage.
You can try to shoot your own minion if you're scared of it enough, and then Jade Blossom. It would look a little bit silly, but would honestly be a pretty reasonable play.
If that spellstone's not upgraded, it's not the most useful, as most of the minions that Oregon State will be playing are either 3 or 5. But it's not difficult for Druid to deal 1 point of damage, so
Yeah.
keeping it's not a bad idea either. How badly do they have to play Jade Blossom this turn, though? Probably pretty badly.
Time waits for no one.
If I was the Druid, I would be shooting my own minion
Yeah.
for sure, and then be sad when it's not the counterspell and you see some laughs coming out, but although it looks really silly, it's just, you're playing around a secret.
It's the right thing to do. 2 counterspells, 2 explosive runes, 1 ice block, 1 potion of polymorph. So intended to take down Warlock. Kirintor Mage, a fantastic draw. Except Oregon State cannot play a second explosive runes until that first one is procced. I wonder.
Yeah, you just might have to play out this Kirintor just for the body here. But they are going, and they're shipping this fireball right to the face. I mean, it's going to hit him in the face eventually, so why not now?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Also frees up a little bit of hand size for when you eventually play Alunith.
Thing is, the Alunith is going to be fetching Oregon State. Bunch of minions. When, ideally you get your minions down early, get that chip damage in, and then Alunith just finds burn. Drawing in a bit of a mismatched order here.
Yeah, and Oregon State was really hoping that they would play a minion there so then they could pair this Kirintor with the Explosive Runes number 2 for free.
Willamette gonna get to that ultimate infestation in just a couple of turns. Well, it's something.
Well, they can coin out the weapon here. Oh wait, no, they don't have a coin. What am I saying?
They could, if they had it.
Yeah. But developing Mana Worm, killing off the minion. Pretty reasonable line. Gonna start a little bit of board presence, and Jade Druid finding that Malfurion, most important card in the matchup, being able to gain that 3 armor every turn. A lot of times you can just try and fatigue the mage because Jade Druid just has so many ways to gain armor right now. We saw one branching path get used, but between Malfurion, the Ultimate Infestation, and even just the second copy of branching paths, that's just so much armor.
Malfurion's just exactly what Willamette needed to get to that UI turn safely.
What to do?
Like we were saying before, this is not an unwinnable matchup for the Mage, but the Druid just has so much life gain that even with a relatively slow start from the Druid, it'll be very difficult for Oregon to get the burn that they need. It was going to rely very heavily on that early chip damage. And Admirable often likes to say, good Hearthstone players pick spiders.
That is a general rule, because the spiders are often the better pick, and it's not always obvious that is the case. The spider's definitely going to line up insane here. There's no Frostbolt or Medivh's Valley to help clean these up, so gonna be a huge deal.
Oregon State dropping this counterspell when Willamette goes to 9. If they'd played Alaneth this turn and then played the counterspell when Willamette went to 10, they could have potentially stopped that ultimate infestation. But here Willamette could swipe, proc the counterspell, go into UI next turn.
Yeah, at the same time, you don't even have to actually UI next turn, because being able to play this Aya, you get a 3/3 and a 4/4. You're able to kill both these minions on board if you want. You could hero power one of them. 2 if you think you could take the damage. Save a Spidey. And then you're really not in too big of a rush. You're in a really safe spot.
Especially since Oregon State's played a couple of played a couple of secrets. Crystal Runner would be free. Having that Spidey for the Crystal Runner is nice. Or just for the minion that comes out of Fireland's portal here. I like this Oregon State pointing it all at face. They do have an ice block in the deck, and Crime Street Enforcer will find no targets. But even a 4/4 is not the worst. So we'll give Willamette a little bit of information on what Oregon State has in hand, as the Enforcer did not proc at the end of turn. There was nothing to buff.
Yeah, a lot of times as mage you want to get that Alunith up as fast as possible, so then you could start being really efficient with your mana by cheating out those secrets with cards like Kirin Tor and Cabal Lackey. Wait, that's not the name of the card, is it? What's?
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm.
Then what's the Warlock card?
Plagued.
As we look down
Cabal
at the deck list.
Trafficker. And there's Cabal Courier. It's definitely Cabal Lackey.
Okay, I got it confused with Possessed Lackey
And
for
there's
a minute
Possessed
there.
Lackey,
I
okay.
definitely called Possessed Lackey Cabal Lackey at some point today, I believe.
Death is eternal.
Whoops.
We haven't actually seen a Q block, I don't think, so I think you're fine.
Oh, nice.
You're good, Bob. Don't worry. Yeah, it's tough to get that Alunith down when you're facing a board of minions, and there's never really a safe time. Willamette just gonna go aggressive here. Close this game out.
Yeah, as the mage, you really want to find that minion-heavy start and then put up like a counterspell to stop like a key turn from the Jade Druid. But none of that really happened this game. They didn't really get up the weapon the turn that they could potentially have. But Jade Druid really cruised through this one pretty safely.
Is there only one AI in this deck? There's 2. So, Vaporize this turn and Fireball face. Then hit Arcane Intellect, Ice Block, and second Primordial Glyph for Fireball. And then you still didn't have lethal with Pyroblast, so never mind.
It would take a stretch for sure. But look at, they are
They are
laughing
so fun.
Yeah, they're absolutely loving it.
I wonder what they're talking about. Probably Hearthstone.
I mean, that's my favorite thing about Tespa is just the guys coming together, and even telling that other team that the fact that they didn't even know each other beforehand, and now they look to be good buds.
Yeah,
Thanks to Hearthstone bringing them all together.
We've seen some teams come together by like answering Facebook posts for people who just wanted to start a team. There was one we saw last week where they came together like 2 days before the start of the tournament to form their team, and now they're like best buds. That's always so nice. I don't know. I wish I had that when I was in college. Like, I had friends. Don't get me wrong.
But not Hearthstone
I'm very
friends.
cool. But no, I didn't have Hearthstone friends.
And those are the coolest.
They're the coolest. Just wanted my GNC, you know?
Alright, so
Is eternal.
I think they got him killed here.
Got him
And that's going to be
dead.
tying up the series.
Good and dead. That druid going to be out of the way for Willamette. Oregon State with the mage still up, but as long as that warlock needs to be played.
I just want to see the treachery be drawn, and them winning increases the chance of that. And also, how could you not root for these guys when they're smiling so much?
The treachery needs to be drawn. And then never played.
Well, I actually really want to see them get the Halfine from the Cabal Trafficker, and then they get the Defile, discard their entire opponent's hand.
I mean, that's...
I want to live the dream.
I want to be like that happy guy dancing as he defiled away
Yeah, that was
all
a
the
great
cards.
clip.
That was a good one. And I feel like that's gotta be what they were going for. Treachery with Doomsayer or treachery with Halfiend. It wouldn't be the first time today
No.
that a team thought they put a card in their deck and actually did not.
And it was probably the situation that it was maybe Doomsayer that they thought was in the deck list.
Yeah.
That could have been an oversight. And that's one of the most important things, you know, when you're submitting lists, you should look over them. Have all your members look over them. Have a friend look over them. Double check, because you don't really want to make mistakes.
No. We don't know if it was a mistake, though, or if it was entirely intentional, but we will find out. We're going to be coming back with game number 3 right after this.
This poor town has seen its share of trials. Now we face a new force, sinuous and vile.
The way ahead is haunted. Our hackles stand on end.
We'll make our stand right here. Our choice is crystal clear. We are the beasts, the monsters fear.
We're about to get into game number 3 of our third and final set of the day in our 7th and final week of play here at the Hearthstone Championships for the Swiss rounds at the very least. And getting into game number 3, the Druid from Willamette is off the table, and Oregon State have won with their Spiteful Priest. So now it's Priest Warlock versus Mage Paladin. 4 unique classes going into this third game, and we have been actually seeing quite a bit of diversity today. I believe 3 different priests in 3 different matches.
I think we've seen every class today besides Shaman.
We didn't see Rogue.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, didn't see Rogue, but yeah, other than Rogue and Shaman, we have had Hunter, Warrior, and all the ones that you see all the time.
Yeah, and Rogue does have its spot in the metagame. You see
Quest
both
Rogue's
Kings,
so
Bane Rogue,
good.
and Quest Rogue. Yep.
We have seen Quest Rogue on this, I'd say at least once a week, and every time it comes out, it just dumpsters its intended target and then like retreats back into its like happy little
Yeah.
cave.
It's definitely one of those decks that, you know, you build a lineup to beat a specific thing, and it definitely does that well. But we've seen a lot of lineups, you know, including the ones we're seeing right now, just decks that they're comfortable with, decks that they think are good, and just try and play them well.
Not quite so targeted, but just well-rounded lineups. And that does seem to be the more popular strategy, is targeted lineups. If your opponent doesn't bring your intended target, then sometimes
run
you
that
are out
risk.
of luck. Yeah, you can't control what your opponent brings to the table, unfortunately. So the consistent across-the-board lineups are certainly more safe, but I do love a Quest Rogue coming out and kicking some Warlock butt. That's always fun to watch. Not today. We still got 3 matches tomorrow, though, so you're going to want to come back then and find out. Somehow I don't think we're going to see any Shaman, but
Unfortunately.
I suppose you never know. Getting into game number 3, however, it's going to be the Spiteful Priest for Willamette and Oregon State back on this Mage deck. Again, this is a very winnable matchup for the Mage. This Priest has a lot less healing than a Control Priest, and certainly no armor gain like that Druid previously. And Willamette still playing it to the crowd. These guys are... they're loving the attention. And you know what? This is the first time I've seen them on stream. I'm glad they're having fun with it.
Yeah, you definitely want to put someone on stream that wants to be there, and they really are loving it. And as the priest in this situation, in this matchup, I usually mulligan every single card looking for Dustbreaker. They decide to keep the Cabal Talon Priest, one of the best minions to have on curve. But a lot of times if you can't find that Dustbreaker in time, you just end up losing on board to the Tempo Priest. I mean the Tempo Mage.
Tempo Priest. That's a good new archetype.
I mean, this is basically Tempo Priest. Play
Without
the minions right on curve.
yeah, without the 1-2-3 curve, if Oregon State were to have Mana Worm here, this would be pretty difficult for Willamette, but fortunately for them, you see them very, very happy. Yeah, nothing on 1.
You always have to cheer whenever the Mana Worm doesn't come down. They only got 2 of them. It always feels like they always have it, but, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of bias in that.
Mana Worm on 1, War Axe on 2, Gadgetzin on 6, and Miracle Rogue is...
You know these guys are healing the face. Classic move.
oh, that's very nice of them.
Oregon State not going for the thank you. A little bit incorrect, and their eyes are popping out of their skulls when they see this counter spell. He lit up when he saw that.
Something to play alongside that Kieran Torn Mage. However, playing against Spiteful Priest, no spells are going to be played until at the very least turn 8. Because again, Mage has the coin. It's a big
Yeah.
benefit. Usually when you're playing an aggro deck, you want to be on the play. You want to be going first. But with Mage and Counterspell, things are a little bit different. Certainly don't mind it going first if you have Mana Worm.
Even though this counterspell isn't going to get procced anytime soon, that's okay, because it does mean that this Medivh's Valet is going to be active whenever you want to play it.
Yee. That's the goods. And their Spiteful Summoner, that will certainly be very helpful on turn 6. Willamette here, very worried that this is Explosive Runes. But Oregon State playing, I believe, 4 Secrets, 2 Counterspell, 2 Explosive Rune, 1 Ice Block, 1 Potion of Polymorph. So 4 different secrets, 6 total. A lot to play around.
Well, you know that you don't have a 4-drop for next turn, so if you do play, you know, your worst minion this turn, potentially still play the better minion next turn if you're afraid of the Explosive Rune. And they made the wrong guess.
Yeah, ooh.
Throws up his hands.
Well, there's the runes
and
now.
sadness. It's always great to see expressive players.
Especially since it feels like in HCT especially, we get a lot of players who you can't tell if it's a live camera or if it's just a picture of them.
Yeah, with the increase of live tournaments, more players are getting better at, trying to show little to no emotion, because sometimes you're just staring at the player right across from you. But in a situation like this, they don't see each other, so you could show all the emotion you want.
That is just not me. Like, if I'm having fun, you're going to see it on my face. If I'm upset, you're going to see it on my face.
Yeah.
So Willamette can't play around the explosive runes with that cleric first. They take 3, but then the Tark Reaper gets to live.
Yeah, it's still a really good pickup because you really do
Is someone injured?
want that Tark Reaper to live.
Obviously, had they gone with Tark Reaper last turn and then Talon Priest this turn, they could have potentially had a buffed up Tark Reaper. But they chose to play around that explosive runes, value the Tark Reaper more highly than the Talon Priest.
Do I trade? Do I go face?
What do I do? Of the players on Willamette University, we know that Big Wen has a pet hedgehog named Snowball. Jay plays college basketball and wants to get into esports. N-Dog Attack U says, although I enjoyed dancing when I was younger, I used, and then it cuts off. So,
Who knows?
we know nothing other than he enjoyed dancing. But that's good.
Does that mean he doesn't anymore?
I don't know.
That'd be sad.
Could there have been like a horrible, tragic life event?
I hope not.
Turned him off from dancing forever? That'd be sad.
To the face.
Hmm.
Huh.
Very aggressive. They really just want Willamette to have to trade over that Talon Priest.
So I think they know that Spiteful Priest has no healing in the deck. So they might be on the game plan that they don't think their opponent's putting on enough pressure fast enough, that they're just going to try and go all face with all the burn. Because they do have a good amount in hand. We see 20 damage in hand. Obviously, it's going to take a bunch of turns to get there, but Willamette deciding to value the heal rather than the pressure from Cobalt Scalebane to start buffing up those minions. So they realized what their opponent's game plan was and recognized that they want to heal every turn if it's reasonable.
That's a tough call to make. Scalebane is such a big threat on board.
Yeah, but look at what their opponent's doing. They're not even taking out that Tark Reaper.
Oh, that Bone Baron's awesome. Challenging the Tark Reapers. Oregon State has nothing for 6. At least that pushes damage. They can take the time to draw a little bit, develop that Kirin Tor Mage. Hopefully they pick up a secret as well.
Yeah, and even though they probably want to heal face again, if you don't play Spiteful Summoner this turn,
dude, it's
when
so
are you
easy.
playing it?
Hit free from Amber. Trade over your Talon Priest. Rag Light Lord.
That does seem to come up a whole bunch whenever I'm playing Evolved Shaman. It's like anytime I need that 8-drop, boom, Raglight Lord. I heal back up, they concede, and then, I get my first win as Shaman.
Happy Nostrum.
Yeah.
Now you just need one more to get your 50 gold. Or is it 40 still?
Pinch of death cup. Heel of shoot.
Depends on the quest. The quests where you need to win 3 with a single class, those are 50.
Yes, yes. Alright, well this is 10 mana.
That's definitely one of those. Low rolls.
Don't
One of
love
the
to see
3
that.
worst minions from the 10 drops, but still decent here. Better than getting an 8 drop into Anomalous.
Oh yeah.
That could always be a nightmare.
Oregon State find a secret?
You know, they really just have to find one more burn spell. Because they're definitely shipping this Firelands portal right to the face. Or I guess they might kill the Tar Creeper if it means they can push more minion damage, but
Yeah.
they're going to do whatever pushes the most damage. Because they've shown that that's their game plan for many turns now.
Willamette can Scalebane heal. They go to 19. Pyro Firelands is 15. So even with 2 more heals to face, Fireball ends the game.
Yeah.
And that's not adding in potential face damage from minions, because right now Oregon State is challenging on board as much as Willamette is. Willamette can't even think about potentially ending the game right now because they need to
Yeah, they need to respond. A lot of times when you go for this all-out face strategy, you end up losing on board, but they've been able to have enough pressure, you know, with the Kieran Tor and pushing out the 0 mana 5/5, even get a good result off the Firelands portal, that they've been able to keep up on board while just pushing everything towards the face.
Willamette won't even have free from Amber on turn 8 into a potential taunt, because that counterspell has been up since turn 3. Turn 2? It's been a while.
Yeah, you have to know that's a counterspell. Because a lot of times, you know, one of the most common discover options is Obsidian Statue because it's a class card. But they need to find a spell, maybe from that Glimmer, to then proc that counterspell first. And Frostbolt is burn. But they're going to need to find a little bit more. And finally, a Firelands portal going to clear a minion. This is 1 less damage, but definitely the right play.
Servant of Kalamos. Again, another reasonable 5-drop. And Oregon State have 13, 14 over 2 turns with a ping. Willamette at 15. Glimmerroot can find Ice Block, but counterspell active.
Yeah, they just need the mage to just brick for a couple draws and just make use of that hero power every turn and try and get out of range.
It's possible.
But if you're going to play the Glimmer, make sure to lead with it and see what you get before you proceed with the turn. Might change what the plan is.
Archaeologist.
They were really hoping for a cheap spell there, but couldn't find it.
It's unfortunate.
One of the great things to find too is Glyph, because then they could just use the Free from Amber to proc the Seeker, which doesn't feel good, but then you could Glyph into something like Greater Healing Potion or Binding Heal.
Have to heal face.
Yeah. And kill all the minions, no more leaving Kieran Torres up. We've that already.
We've seen how that goes.
Usually not good.
Cal did not win that game. Even with head in hands, they're still looking like they're having some fun. The Potion of Polymorph. Polymorph is not a good draw for Oregon. It doesn't deal damage to face. Mana Worm gets killed pretty easily, so now Willamette can start to pressure back a little bit.
Yeah, and each turn it becomes harder and harder. Like Fireball will be an out for 2 turns, maybe 3.
Willamette go to 15. Oregon State ping to 14. They've got a couple turns. And Willamette need probably 2 to proc block, I would think. So 3 to kill.
Yeah. So they do have time, and there's definitely good draws. There's Glyph, Fireball, a Lunith, Arcane Intellect, potentially.
A lot of burn left. No, order! Why?
That's okay. I mean,
Is it really?
it's...
That's pretty bad. That
Yeah.
might have just pushed their clock back a turn.
Yeah, I think that did just cost them a whole turn. But they were a little bit afraid of explosive runes, right? I believe so. So
Yes,
it's not
they've
strictly wrong, because they would have taken 3 damage if they played the Arcanologist first.
Yeah,
So they
that's
could have
right.
been playing around that instead.
They've only seen one. Runes, so it was a 50-50 between runes and Potion of Polymorph. Oregon State with another brick.
Yeah, and you have to ping face this turn, I believe, because your opponent does not have lead. lethal, and you need Fireball to be an out. And if you don't ping face, then if you go Pyroblast and they heal twice, then Fireball won't be lethal. So you really need to ping face here and hope they don't have a way to pop you.
Go to 14, heal. Pyroblast, but then Willamette would heal to 8. I think they may be out of range already, actually.
Time runs out on me.
I mean, if you ping them to 14, then they heal to 16. You Pyroblast them, and then they heal again.
Yeah.
And
then you
yeah,
Fireball
yeah,
ping
you're
and yeah, they're one out.
Yeah, it would be one off. Alright, so that does mean you should ping that there. Did the math a little bit wrong, but you know, that's your job as a caster, is just get the math wrong so the players could look absolutely brilliant when they get it right.
I mean, we're not the ones playing.
Pinch of death.
Rag Light Lord?
Please. No. Tyrantus.
There are no taunt or healing options from 10.
Alright. That is often why 8 drops can be better, just because they are more than just stats on board.
Yeah, you could get some effects.
Alright, Willamette gonna pop block next turn. So in 2 turns, Oregon State will be dead.
And I think they need Glyph. Oh. Well, okay, they could Pyroblast here, and then they're on a draw to top deck Burn for lethal. It's definitely very doable. They just have to believe in the heart of the cards.
It's not impossible. Friendship will get them there.
There's Medee's Valet, Frostbolt, Glyph.
My Oregon State's deck has no pathetic cards.
There's a lot of live draws and potential lethals. A lot of times this is what Burn Mage comes down to, is you play to your outs the best you can, and then you hope for that burn off the top. And, you know, I have to give credit to Oregon State. They did play towards this out. If they played maybe for a little bit more for board and push less damage to face, they could potentially not have this out here.
Yeah. It is rare that this deck actually plays straightforward and just kills its opponent. I mean, Alaneth is only 1 card in the deck. It certainly adds to the consistency of the deck, but you're not going to find it every game.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee. Willamette know that that's counterspell.
Yeah, part of the reason you definitely want to play this free from Ember is you want to remove Medee's Valet from a potential out.
That's a
We
good
know
point.
that they do have another secret, so even if they did clear it up, that wouldn't be a problem, but
Oh, Alex Straza.
something to play around.
That's so good.
Oh!
Oh! Okay! Play into their outs, and Oregon State will be rewarded here. Very, very close. And
The
Willamette,
opposite reactions.
heartbreak and joy. Oregon State going to go up 2-1. This Mage picking up a win against the Spiteful Priest. Priest taking just a little bit too long to get on board. And the Mage with that Frostbolt off the top at the very end. That's going to be enough for them to pick up that win. So now it's just down to the Dude Paladin for Oregon State. Willamette still with that Spiteful Priest and their Warlock, Question mark.
Which is sort of like a control warlock, right? Besides
It's
the weird cards.
it's a lot of things.
Oh, it actually does have cubes and everything.
Yeah, it is
Okay,
cube
it is
block
cube block.
with control tendencies.
Yeah.
It has Siphon Soul, it has Twisting Nether, it has Treachery.
That was the saddest part about the game ending like that. It's not a guarantee that we're going to see this warlock
I
deck
know.
anymore.
Okay, this is still a deck with 2 Defiles.
Yeah.
And 2 Defiles are still really good against Paladin, probably better than Priest, which has Duskbreaker, but against dudes you need a lot of removal, and Duskbreakers can fizzle. So I still think they may be bringing out the Warlock here.
It is the better matchup out of the two. And I would have to imagine that if they didn't have the weird tech choices in this warlock, that it would have been banned out. Because I feel like with the lineup that Oregon State has, that warlock is probably normally the best ban for them.
If you're bringing Dude Paladin, usually you're banning your opponent's Warlock. Dude
Yeah.
Paladin just, it's not good. You can put Equalities in it, you can put Spellbreakers in it, it doesn't really matter. Defile is often a full clear, Hellfire is often a full clear. The second Void Lord comes down, you can just like throw your hands up and say, can't do it. It's really, really tough.
Yeah.
So I do almost wonder if Willamette was mind gaming a little bit and putting all of this weird stuff into this Warlock
hope
deck
so.
to make it a little bit subpar so they just get to play it.
I
'Cause
really hope so.
At the end of the day, it still has 2 Void Lords, 2 Lackeys, 2 Doom Guards, 2 Cubes, and Blood Reaver Gul'dan.
Yeah, and if we see Priest versus the Paladin first, the real question
No!
is how many Duskbreakers are you going to draw? You get 2 from the Historian, 2 from your deck, because you need them all versus Dude Paladin.
Yeah, you really do. This is such a difficult one to win for this Priest, especially if the Dude Paladin has Call to Arms on 4, if they have Stand Against Darkness. Every board that this Paladin makes is a potential game-winning board.
And finally,
So-
we see a Righteous Protector in Paladin, its rightful spot.
It's not a guarantee, apparently. Not if you're wanting to hit face. But for the sake of everyone out there who wants to see this Treachery Warlock deck, Willamette's going to have to take this one, and they're going to have to find Duskbreakers to do it. I do think Shadow Ascendant is a fine keep. This is one that, unfortunately, you just can't keep that Spiteful Summoner in. There's not a lot of them, but this is one of them.
Yeah, and finding that one drop to go with the Shadow Ascendant is just so important, because if you do keep it and you can't find the Cleric, then it's just not very useful. 2 mana 2/2, not what you're looking for.
That's a fantastic hand. Just
Oh yeah.
coin Cleric into heal.
Yeah.
Very nice. You're going to find those Duskbreakers. Oh, the first time we've seen the PogChamp.
The
They-
1/3s just fight so well against Dude Paladin.
Willamette have a meme for every appropriate occasion. Direwolf Alpha can clean up one of the clerics.
Yeah, I would like to see them play both here. Guarantee that one of them's gonna live.
It's play one or... Nah, just play both, and then you get to play the Ascendant anyway.
Yeah.
There's no real point in playing Cleric and coining out Ascendant on 2.
Someone injured?
And they realize double Cleric, pretty strong start against Paladin. Helps you fight for board immediately.
That's the Priest has. Willamette can follow this up with a Cabal Talon Priest or a Tar Creeper, even a Curious Glimmerroot. Then they've gotten pretty much the start that they need.
It's always funny watching Dude Paladin play against Priest, because a lot of times they just make the board of 1/1s over and over and over, and then eventually they'll use the cards like Level Up of the Stegodon to then threaten lethal with the final board that sticks.
Willamette gonna need to find something to do on 3. They always have the option to heal, and since Oregon doesn't have a way to kill this Cleric, that heal is additional resources, but that Unidentified Maul is a pickup. Wow.
Yeah, definitely gonna help fight for the board here. clear out that minion without having to trade off your Direwolf Alpha definitely feels good.
Oh, they're getting rid of the Ascendant first. So Oregon State making this play means that they think that Willamette has a 3-drop in hand.
Yeah. But even if you did have a 3-drop, I'm usually pretty happy to take a card draw when, you know, you can. A general rule for Priest back in the day was if you could draw a card, draw a card.
There's Duskbreaker, but no dragon. So 1 piece.
I'm always so... Oh, wait. I was about to say I'm always so scared to play Jailer against Priest, but I forgot. It is Spiteful Priest. You don't have to worry about that Potion of Madness.
Nostum, we saw a Spiteful Priest like
What?
2 or 3 weeks ago that did have a Potion of Madness in the deck.
That's special.
And it hit the Potion of Madness with the Spiteful on stream and still won.
Wow.
And his reasoning was he just didn't have one of the cards to put into the deck.
Okay.
I don't remember what card it was. And they put in Potion of Madness, not remembering that
yeah.
it would. Yeah.
You know, that'll happen. Whenever, you know, Hearthstone's trying to recommend cards, it doesn't always take that into consideration. Like, whenever you build Spell Hunter and it's like, oh, you don't have this card? Well, try plopping this minion in your deck. It's like, no, I'm trying to play Spell Hunter, man.
Kindly Grandmother is a good card. Oh.
Now.
That's how this works.
Whoa.
Whoa!
Wow.
Why?
I don't know.
Duskbreaker? No.
Yeah, I really not quite sure about that one. Feel like you just have to kill the cleric in that situation, and it's definitely going to be a pretty big punish being able to clear this Knife Juggler and heal it back up.
So, yeah, if Willamette were to want to play Duskbreaker this turn, the cleric would die for free. So I get it, but Willamette will kill the juggler, heal up, and Oregon State's just going to play level up, actually.
But a lot of times you can't play around Duskbreaker forever, so you have to accept like the first one and then refill, and then hope
Yeah.
they don't have the second. And then when they have the second, you hope they don't have the third from Historian.
Oregon State's kind of lacking on the refill right now, which is strange. That's one thing that usually Dude Paladin thrives.
Yeah.
Refilling the board. Willamette just need to find a dragon. 1 dragon and they're sitting pretty.
It's always tough. Like, you don't really want to use the level up until the Duskbreaker comes out, but you didn't see it last turn, so you might have a read that they don't have it. But at the same time, you really weren't under that much pressure. But we do know that there's no dragon yet to activate this Duskbreaker, but okay, there it is. Fairy Dragon. Coming in clutch.
Perfect timing. Willamette going to be able to roll into Spiteful Summoner on 6 if Oregon State doesn't present a really threatening board. So Oregon can dump their entire hand. And they are playing 2 Divine Favors. So kind of on the dump hand, hope we find Call to Arms Divine Favor plan.
Yeah.
The light dims, but we fight.
So do you hit the minion before you play the next 2 to guarantee that your juggles are efficient?
Yeah, I think so.
But we fight.
Yeah, and I like them playing the Jailer here. No reason to be efficient with your hero power. You want to get this Jailer out so it dies, so then you could then throw those dudes right onto the board.
100%. Nothing to worry about. No reason not to play the Jailer. If Willamette has Duskbreaker here, I don't think they'd be playing it. So 50-50 for 8 versus 10 drop. If Willamette wants to go for Spiteful this turn. You know,
Again, I feel like if you're not playing Spiteful this turn, when are you playing it? So it's turn 6, jamming it. 8 drop. Let's see. Is it Tyrion? Is it Anomalous? Is it anywhere in between? It is Kalamos.
Kalamos Primal Lord. Not the best, but it's okay.
In Consecration, one of the tech cards coming up here. Not the best in this matchup, but still a little bit of damage.
In the deck to go up against other aggro decks.
Yeah.
If you're doing a Dude Pally Mirror, Consecration's going to be much better than Equality.
That's why it's funny that they ended up banning Paladin in this matchup. I don't think that was their game plan going in.
No, but just looking at that Warlock deck and the Paladin being a little bit non-traditional, maybe they got scared.
Yeah. And again, I like playing all these minions here, going all in. No reason to try and be efficient with your hero power. You know, you've already seen one Dustbreaker. You just have to hope they don't have the second one.
Yeah.
And I don't even think you trade into this 4-1, because if he's healing the minion, that means he's not healing face. And you're always happy to see that. And it doesn't really play around anything. Dustbreaker is going to be the same, rather if you trade in or go face. And I think they're going to realize this and push the 1 extra damage, which is always relevant. Ooh, maybe not.
I mean, you have 2 Divine Shielded taunts in the way. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That's...
I did like the all-in strategy, and, you know, it only got punished by 1 card off the top. Well, I guess 2. Historian into this could have been the same thing.
Yeah.
But now he could Dustbreaker, heal up his minion. And that's just so brutal.
That is really unfortunate for Oregon State, but that's one of the best reload cards they have access to.
Yeah, it was either that or Divine Favor that they needed to stay in this game, and they got one of them. And picking up these Divine Shield minions, always a big deal, because now you have potential Tyrum, because these minions are very likely to stick around. As the Spiteful Priest, a lot of times you're never worried about killing your opponent, because against Paladin in this case, because you're fine always making the trades, because eventually you will win on board.
Oh, wow.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 7-2 going into a 1-1 here.
I actually really like this list from Oregon State. They have 2 Consecrations, Sunkeeper Tarim and Vine Cleaver at the top end, so definitely the Consecrations are for the mirror, but Vine Cleaver gives you that little bit of extra oomph against control.
Yeah, Vine Cleaver is even starting to make a appearance in some Murloc lists just because it's such a good value card. Helps you in those grindy matchups where you play for board.
That's not good.
I really want to see another one of those.
The ancient one. Yeah, Oregon State definitely wanting a taunt there. Obsidian Statue having a higher appearance rate because it is a class minion.
Yeah.
Would have been the best choice. There's that Vine Cleaver.
And that, if that's going anywhere but face. You're doing it wrong.
What? This changes the math. Well, if Willamette has...
Yeah,
Alright.
but you have to not die.
Yeah. You do have to not die, I suppose.
Yeah. Because they were
That is
repping
important.
lethal.
And they just end up playing a bunch of stuff anyway.
So I think it's going to be a situation where
It's close.
you have to go for Free from Amber again. Hopefully find that Obsidian Statue.
Or that giant Mastodon, or
Sleepy Dragon.
Sleepy Dragon. Yep.
There's some good options. Getting some fist bumps in for good luck.
The
They know they
Friendship
need it,
FFA.
I believe. No.
Oh. Charge Devil Sword!
Is that enough?
Is that lethal?
Oh. Wait.
That's lethal!
That is lethal. That's better than a taunt. The
Wow.
power of the fist
Okay.
bump. Oh my. I didn't even consider that.
Oh my goodness.
A lot of times, anytime there's a potential out with Charge Devil Sword, that's all the casters are saying. It's like, oh, they could get the 7 attack minion, kill him here. We were so focused on the taunts that we forgot, man, they have a lot of power on board. And I did not see that coming.
I haven't actually gotten Charge Devil Sword for lethal in a very long time. I'm
Yeah.
always like, ooh, I have this chance. Just never see it.
When it
All I
popped up,
get are
I was like,
Obsidian
what are you getting
statues.
excited about? It? They can't clear enough on board, and then they were just dead.
They just win the game.
Who knew?
Charge Devil Sword can go face if you haven't just played it that turn.
That was the power of
fact.
friendship, getting that good luck.
That
The
was
fist
totally
bumps all
friendship.
around.
That was 100% friendship.
Of course. And now we finally get to see the Warlock. Can it pull through? With a little bit of wacky tech choices, is it going to do well for them? Who knows?
It can still just play Skull of the Minari into Void Lord.
Yeah.
It can still Lackey Coin Dark Pact. It
There's
can
very strong mechanics in that deck.
it can still defile. Like the
Yeah.
core of the deck is still there.
And
It's
I have
just
to imagine it's favored for them.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I would think so. They just took some weird stuff and put it in. And I can't wrap my head around why they put Treachery in without Doomsayer or Howl Fiend.
But again,
Never seen it done before.
this is the win and in for both these teams, and coming down to Game 5.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Team that takes this game will be moving on to the regional playoffs. The team that loses, unfortunately, this will be the end of their tournament road.
Well, there's the skull.
And there's the Defile. That's a pretty good start. But this is not an impossible one for Oregon State to win. Dude Paladin is incredible at building up threatening board after threatening board. Eventually, one of them may stick. That's when you hit him with Level Up, with Light Fuse Stegadon. It's a lot of damage, and there is a copy of Spellbreaker in this deck, potentially to get through the first Void Lord, or to shut down the first Lackey. Not to mention 4 surprise damage with Consecrations.
Interesting that they decided to keep a Maul here. The Divine Shield Maul Purifier, I believe,
Yes.
is, always a big deal when you get that, because Defile and Hellfire really do not deal with Divine Shields particularly well. So they're taking a chance there on getting one of the better ones, and Crystalline also one of the better cards in the matchup. If you're able to cheat that out early, not an easy card to remove in the early game.
Lost in the Jungle, and Champion's Maul going to cheat out that Crystalline very fast. But Willamette with the Defile in response, and their Skull into Void Lord into Carnivorous Cube, and they're like, how are we so good at Warlock? Takes time. Takes some practice. Eventually you too can draw Skull of the Minari and Void Lord.
They're going to find the Dark Pact for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's just the nuts curve. You don't get it every game, that's for sure. But when you do, oh cheese. Feels good. And they have the Hellfire too. There's only one Hellfire in the deck. Why? Why? Oh, I know. So, Skull of the Minari pulls out Void Lord, cube the Void Lord,
And then
and
give
then
it
say,
to him.
here you go.
I like how he instantly points to his brain. Just thinking, throws up the Monka S sign.
What is the reasoning? Why you do this? There's even a Fellfire
Got it.
potion in the deck. They took out Hellfire and put in Fellfire potion.
Maybe more players have to look into this. If you have the best deck, Warlock's one of the best decks, often gets banned. How many bad cards can you put into it while it's still being good and, it bait bans? It's definitely a real thing.
How can
Apparently.
I get my Paladin banned? Instead of my Warlock. Make them both weird, but make the Paladin look good and make the Warlock look bad, but it's still secretly
Seriously,
being
though,
good.
like, Oregon State's Paladin is teched for the mirror with the double consecration. They would normally ban this Warlock, but because of the... I don't even know if you call them tech choices, just the bad card.
Just the bad
treachery.
cards.
Yeah.
Treachery, the Fellfire potion, just
Well, Fellfire Potion at least has some application.
what is Fellfire potion gonna kill that Hellfire's not gonna kill?
Uh,
Double level up dudes? Alright, you got me.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty good against Priest.
Doesn't kill ops.
That's true.
Eh, kill skill beans. Oregon State not happy about that. They had a lot relying on that Crystalline this turn.
Yeah.
But the Jailer's gonna mean that Crystalline will hit the board eventually. Unfortunately, probably not before Skull of the Minari does.
And I said they would find the Dark Pact in time, and they surely enough have. And I would just use this Spellstone right now because you are 100% going to put up the weapon next turn. That's like always going to happen. And then you just want to be able to survive the turn you play it. So
Do you really want to give? Give your opponent 3 dudes to play though? Like if you don't kill Jailer, it's not dying.
yeah, but at the same time, you know, there's always options like Called Arms or even other potential plays. If they're playing 3 dudes and I'm playing Skull, I think I'm going to be pretty happy about it. Especially Skull into Voidlord.
That's
and
true.
especially you 100% do not want to tap in this situation because it opens you up to potentially finding Doomguard. So whatever they do, just do not tap.
Like the winning line is Skull on 5, don't die,
Yeah.
hit Voidlord, cube Dark Pact. You win.
You
Game is over.
you almost never lose from that spot.
As long as you have 1 point of life, you heal for 8, you go to 9. Good.
Oh. But they found
Coil?
a coil.
Coil.
Okay. Well, they decided not to kill it off, which is fine. As long as they don't find Doomguard off the top, pretty sure they're going to be in a great position.
Skull pulls before the draw.
Yeah.
So as long as there's a Doomguard off the top, Voidlord will be pulled, guaranteed. And then Willamette will cube and Treachery. And then still somehow win the game?
Yeah, and that's not Doomguard coming off the top. So just equip the weapon here. You don't think about it too much. They might be thinking that this is a little bit too much pressure, but there's nothing that you die to if you equip this weapon. And then you always have the insane recovery with the cube and the Dark Pact.
You get...
It puts 2 Void Lords, 3 Void Walkers. You don't get through that.
And you heal for 8.
Yeah.
You don't lose. If you play Skull of the Minari here. You probably don't lose if you play Hellfire Mortal either, but like,
Yeah.
you really don't lose if you play Skull.
I mean, if you do anything but Skull, you always open yourself to that option of pulling out a Doomguard, which Sometimes that's how an aggro deck wins, is when the Doomguard comes out first.
Come on, guys. Skull on 5.
I believe.
Staying alive.
Come on. Play. There we go.
That is correct. Oregon can't play Tarim this turn. They can play Tarim the turn after, but oh well.
Yeah, they're going to try and push as much damage as possible and just hope it. Doomguard flies out, but they're going to be pretty sad to see that their opponent has the nuts.
That's the only way to describe it. Willamette got the nuts.
The light
And even when you put some weird stuff in your deck, you can still draw the best cards.
And they're definitely more favored in this matchup than they would have been in a Paladin Mirror, so.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Oregon State isn't 100% out. They need to find Tyrum exactly off the top, I believe.
Yes, 100%.
Games always look, you know, impossible, and then Tyrum comes along and gives you some hope.
Is Shadowflame? Ever a consideration?
I would not do it, because then your opponent could refill, and then you're looking at this Cube Dark Pack and not really having as much application for it. It's just the Cube Dark Pack is just so unbelievably strong.
As long as they don't.
There's nothing you die to.
Yeah.
And who cares if they have all these minions? Even if they have Tyrum, they're pushing 0 damage to face. Because there's so many taunts on the board and killing the Void Lords that there's just too many attacks.
The only way Willamette lost there is if they played Hellfire, because Oregon State has Consecration.
Yeah.
That is literally. It.
Yeah. And that is not Tyrum. Oh, well, they can draw a lot of 1/1s, but
They can. They can throw a lot of knives.
so I think you have to look for a situation where you're trying to kill both these Void Lords before you kill the the Voidwalkers just so extras don't spawn. I don't know if the Consecration's going to come out this turn. Definitely think you want to focus on killing both the Void Lords first. But one of them's definitely going to live.
Well, this is still a really good consecration.
Yeah, and putting the Voidwalkers to 1 HP means you're going to get 2 juggles here. Hopefully it cleans up a couple of them.
There is still a world where Oregon State, with a Tarim draw soon, could
Well,
take this.
The only problem is that they can just Shadow Flame one of these Voidwalkers, and 1 damage AoE is just enough in this situation. And you see them hover it instantly. So
weird.
in that situation, we're at the point where Tarim doesn't even bring you back here.
It's better than both Defile and Hellfire here.
I thought he was hovering the Treachery for a second. That would be very bold.
That would be so
It would not hurt your chances
mean.
to win, but
You'd still win, but that'd be so mean.
Yeah. I didn't even know you can use Treachery when they have 7 minions on the board. For some reason I thought you wouldn't be able to use it, but I guess the minion just dies.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever wanted to do that in the history of Hearthstone.
So many possibilities.
I think I've actually seen a clip before of someone doomsaring and then treacherying with 7 minions on board and then did die, so I guess that's how that interaction works. But this Shadow Flame, one of the tech choices we were talking about, not common, paying off huge here.
It's a bit of a weird one, but still a great card. It's just a card that has fallen off a little bit, and oh, Willamette is getting excited. That's a Stegadon, though.
Reporting for duty. Reporting for duty.
These guys stay alive. Maybe there's a world.
Yeah, you have to hope for Tarim or another Stegadon, but as long as they continue to remove the minions, which they have access to do that.
Ew.
Huh.
Stop it right now. This is cruel.
Well, that's something you can do to play around Tarim, is just eat your Void Lord now. And then you could crack it if they do play a Void Lord. I mean, if they do play Tarim.
All the Voidwalkers.
I mean, you'd be a
Come
little bit weak to
3/3s.
silence, but pretty sure you'd still win in that situation.
Keep in mind, only 1 Void Lord has actually been played this game. Still 1 in deck
You
and
always
2
seem to
Doom
forget
Guards.
about that. It's like, really, they've only played 1 demon? They just manipulated it this much?
They're not even playing N'Zoth in the deck. Just cool down.
I mean, you have to cut some things to make room for all these wacky cards. Alright.
I'm a big fan of seeing Rin played, no matter when it happens.
Reporting
So I'm
for
okay
duty.
with this.
Reporting for duty.
Oregon State's tournament road may be coming to an end here if they can't find a level up or a Tarim or another Stegadon ASAP, but even still, Willamette can just Hellfire here and remove
Yeah.
the chance of that ever happening.
As long as they remove this board, this should be a for sure win for the Warlock.
Even just Stonehill into the Lion, Hellfire and run over Rin, and you can play a Seal if you want, or Lackey first, and Hellfire,
Yeah.
get a Demon.
It's good for them realizing that they could push this 1 extra damage. No reason to trade this into Divine Shield because they could just kill it anyway with the Spellstone.
Yeah.
Really showing why they're about to qualify for the playoffs.
If they don't want to play that Lackey down, just heal up to 13. Lethal damage
Oh.
represented.
Divine Favor, although that's going to draw some cards.
Or lethal
It's gonna be
damage
a little
actually
too
not
late.
represented. Well, unless Lackey Spellstone pulls Doomguard.
Yeah.
Tear him. Buddy.
Where were you at a couple turns ago?
What's up with that?
Magic shall not save you. Well played.
Yeah, as you said, I definitely like Lackey Spellstone. Even if you don't get a Doomguard, you're getting the last Void Lord, and that thing's gonna make sure you don't die.
Not for Haunted Treachery. Stretch it. Oh.
I mean, you could
Okay.
also kill. Oh, they found
all
it,
right. Yep.
and they did it. That's the PogChamp backwards. Also, doesn't really work well as a backwards word, but
Meh.
they did
The
it.
intent is still there. Look at them,
hook's coming
Willamette. So excited. They have qualified for the regional playoffs with a 3-2 victory over Oregon State. With that Warlock deck with a Treachery and a whole host of other weird stuff, it's still Cube Warlock, guys. You should still probably ban it away if you're playing Paladin. Really unfortunate for Oregon State. They are out of the tournament, but hopefully we'll be seeing more of them in our next season. But for now, Willamette are going to take it.
I'm
And
glad we could actually ask some questions
Oh,
about
thank
the
goodness.
preparation going into this tournament, because I really want to know, was that intentional? Did they forget Doomsayers? Were they trying to bait a ban?
I'm skipping
I'm
the
ready to
feel
find
good,
out.
and I'm going right to the hard hitting. What was it,
Yeah.
and why? The world deserves to know, because I really cannot wrap my head around it. But we're going to find out right now. We have an interview ready with Willamette, the winners of our final match. All right, guys. I'm going to skip the feel-good stuff because I think we know how you're feeling right now, but we need to know, what were you doing with that Warlock deck, and why?
It's our best deck by far. I mean, like, people might think the Treachery is bad, but, like,
So-
there's one combo that
Yeah,
works. You
I
want to talk about?
honestly think it's because a lot of people, the Warlock's really strong, and a lot of people see the Treachery and the Kabbalist Trafficker, and probably think it's really weak. So we like to use that and hope that we get a Void Lord or a Doomguard to keep out with the Skull and Minari, and just have an extra surprise with that.
But no, it's like that one card. It's the 3/6 when you play a minion, discard a card. So when we get that and it gets summoned by the weapon, we Treachery that and give it to the enemy so they can discard their deck. That was the idea behind it. It's kind of mean, but I mean, a lot of people don't really ban our Warlock deck because of that, even though our Warlock deck is still really strong, and like there's a lot of synergies with it. But yeah, I don't know, it still works, and it gets past banning phase because of
Also,
that.
we seen a lot of aggro decks.
I think you may have muted the Yeti there.
Oh
There
my
you
bad.
go.
I must have done it when I picked it up.
As-
Did
I was
you
about
miss
to say
that?
something. I was like, is that just me?
It's okay. I've done it a time or two. Don't worry. Yeah, no. Defile with Howlfiend and Treachery is a sweet combo. I don't know that our deck list actually had that Howlfiend on it, though, so maybe we were working on some bad information that whole time. But that is one of the coolest combinations in Hearthstone, so I certainly don't blame you guys for wanting to play that. But definitely your opponent's not banning that Warlock away was their ultimate downfall. So now we'll rewind a little bit and get into the feel-good questions. How are you guys feeling? You're qualified for the regional playoffs now.
That's crazy. We never really came up with it. Nathan kind of came to us, and like I'd never met Nathan. Like we just had one class together, but we just all came together because we really liked Hearthstone. We just all got really into it. And we started just doing really well. So it's just really good to be here.
Yeah.
I don't know, and like I don't know. I think our decks like they're different. I think they can like beat some of like the better decks out there, even if they're not meta. So I don't know. I have a lot of like faith that we can win all the way.
Well, you guys have definitely proved that creative deck building certainly counts for something, especially in a meta where it's, we're getting right up to the new expansion, the rotation. A lot of the decks are very solid, but they're pretty standard. You guys bringing something a little bit different and proving that you can make it to the regional playoffs as well. So talk to us a little bit about your experience throughout the course of this tournament. You said that you guys met and just started playing this tournament and became friends through this, but has it been a good experience for you?
Yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, it's been really good. Just like I think overall we've all gotten probably better as players, just like individually as well as as a group, and it's just been really fun. So.
Yeah, like as Hearthstone players, definitely got me back into the game. I had a pretty long hiatus, about a year hiatus, so I didn't have a lot of the cards, but I I still knew how to play the game, and like we figured stuff out. And like as far as like growing as friends, like I never knew Nathan or David, but like I don't know, it's been really cool to get to know them now. Like they're two of my like closest friends here on campus. So yeah, I know. My Willamette brothers right here, and it's Willamette. Some people in chat were memeing.
Willamette.
Willamette.
Yeah, I got that wrong the whole time.
It's
Apologies.
okay.
But that's a great segue. I've never heard of you guys before. Talk to us a little bit about esports at Willamette.
Well, there's not really
So
any.
there actually isn't really any. So like I discovered the tournament just because I love Hearthstone. I've been playing for like 2 years, and I actually watched the collegiate tournament last year, and I was like, hey, I like Hearthstone, and I don't think there's a big community. I didn't think there was a big community at Willamette, so it's where we don't have like a sponsored like Hearthstone team or anything like the varsity like schools.
Yeah.
But because like I knew it was a thing, I was like, hey, what are the requirements? And I saw, you have to be in college, and I was like, hey, let me see who in Willamette likes Hearthstone, and that's how we kind of like started getting into the tournament. So we kind of are just like individuals just trying to get into the esports.
Yeah, just a little about us. We're in Salem, Oregon. We're D3, so that's probably why no one knows us.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, with this, like we're really hoping that we can like get a Hearthstone team going with like I don't know, like we made regional playoffs. That counts for something, and so we have momentum going with us, and I think that's enough to like get the school to like start noticing esports and like take it seriously and maybe give us a team actually.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's definitely fun to watch you guys play. You're very expressive throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
Having the signs for the Twitch chat. Do you have any message for the Twitch chat, to gain their support going forward?
Anything you want to say to chat?
I don't know, chat. I'm glad you really liked us. We really realized we're broadcasting. We're like, oh, we should like make a sign to communicate with chat, because like no one's really giving chat love. I feel like I don't know, when you're streaming, like you want to get chat involved and like don't want them like be like resident sleeper in chat. So we made like Moncast and like just like some other like just text signs like just right before we started.
I think it was just fun getting the community involved.
Yeah.
Also, like we don't even like we were thinking even if we lose, we might lose, we're still gonna be the team who has the most fun playing throughout the
Yeah,
tournament.
because Hearthstone is just
it's
I mean,
fun.
ultimately it's a game, and that's what we love to do.
I love that mentality, guys. You're
great to
so
see.
positive, and that is awesome. Well, congratulations, you guys.
Thank you.
I am excited to see more of what you have to bring to the table moving forward. Some more creative deck building, maybe, and maybe even a Howl Fiend Treachery to file somewhere in the mix. But congratulations, guys. It's really awesome to see just a group of friends come together and become friends over Hearthstone and just have a good time while playing. It was a joy to get to watch you guys. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
I mean, I think that's the perfect way to end our first day of week number 7. It's such pure joy seeing them experience the whole range of emotions throughout that match, but ultimately they're just having fun.
That was definitely my favorite thing to see today, is just the players talking about, coming together to play in this tournament and just being friends because of it.
Collegiate Hearthstone is such a different world than HCT, and it's obviously they're
People are
college
happy.
students. They're happy. They're college students. They're not professional Hearthstone players. Certainly, you see a lot of people getting very upset, and a lot of people who take it very seriously, and that's absolutely correct. There is a lot of money on the line, but also I don't know. They just seem to really enjoy it. When it's not a job, I guess, and it's still just your hobby, you can take it at
Play,
face
have
value.
fun.
It's a game of Hearthstone,
Yeah.
and I love seeing them making friends and enjoying it along the way. So really an awesome way to end our day of Hearthstone. But I think we can go ahead and take